sustainability and how we look at it. Now, Deloitte's a great example of sustainability because we have sustained ourselves for so many years. We always talk about ourselves as saying, there are so many organizations that have been great, number one brands, but did not stand the test of time. We stood for 180 years and constantly reinvented ourselves. So we are like the Roger Federers or the Michael Jordans of the corporate world in terms of continuously being there. So I think that's one of the reasons why the brand is very important, and the brand is something we care deeply about.
Many different skills come out in those creative games, and when you make people laugh, smile, I think that's how you make people learn more about the topic, and they will remember those times when you make people smile. I remember in my Stanford course, Stanford Leadership Executive session for a high performer women leaders program, we had a special session on humor. Seriously, book author Jennifer had come to our session and told about the science behind humor and making people smile and laugh. So it's actually a strategical tool to navigate hard topics, especially in the boardrooms. This is also a very good strategy. So what we see as a growing trend in the Middle East, we are receiving offers, proposal requests for taking their global leadership to Turkey, in the south part of Turkey, to Bodrum, Antalya, and it's great to hear these these requests coming from global organizations, because I'm really happy to see that companies more and more giving focus attention on bringing people together, seeing that value again, creating human times, face times. I think it's really crucial.
Candidates are asking more questions about the culture of the companies. What is the employer value proposition? Like, what is the mission of this company? Like, do I really believe myself working aligned with this mission or not? I think the people have that mentality right now. And of course, they ask the questions about the job and the other details, but that piece is becoming more and more important in today's world, which is really nice to see as well. And I think that helps to create mission-driven organization, purpose-driven organizations globally, because we are now in candidate-driven markets. We are trying to attract people. Everyone, welcome to our webinar today. And we are organizing this webinar as Uplift People Consulting and GVGL Marketing. And today we have two great panelists, and let me introduce them quickly to you. And George Abraham is in the HR field, I guess since 2007, right, George? I was stalking your LinkedIn profile before we started. And in the last 12 years, and George is working in Deloitte, and George is currently leading the talent COE pillar in the Middle East region in Deloitte. And he's focusing on talent attraction, mobility, talent analytics, talent survey, employee lifecycle events. So he has a big team across different countries in Middle East. And George, it's great to have you on our webinar today. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Very kind of you to say all of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have another very strong woman in the business field. So Ebru Tuygun has almost 20 years of experience in the marketing field. And she also worked at Deloitte, actually, in the past, like George, and as well as Accenture. And lately, she was the regional CMO at Accenture Middle East. And currently, she's leading she's the chairwoman of the International Women of Directors, and as well as she is the managing director of GVGL marketing company. And welcome, Ebru, to our webinar today too.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Lovely to connect with you again.
Yeah, thank you. And so today we will be talking specifically about employer branding, because we know how it is important for companies and organizations to, first of all, attract talent, and of course, then retain talent. These are two big challenges we always face and see the challenge every day. So some companies really excel in creating this beautiful, consistent, memorable employer brands, but some companies are still struggling, trying to find their ways to create this brand. And some of them maybe have not started even to work on this topic. So hopefully this webinar will be helpful for everyone. So maybe, George, we can kick off the webinar with you. So Deloitte is a global, well-known brand for everyone in almost every continent. So I want to ask, what are the key elements that make an organization an employer of choice as you are in it? And particularly in today's dynamic and changeable working environment. So maybe you can share some practical examples with us.
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. I think it's a very important point. And in the past, when people looked for roles and jobs, they always looked at looking at just a good brand name and looking at it for a career. Today, they are much more discerning as a candidate. They want to have a lot of things. They want to have organizations that dwell on purpose and are purpose-led organizations. So, for example, Deloitte as an organization, our purpose is to make an impact that matters to our clients, our people, and our societies that we exist in. So, and this is important to the joiners coming in. If I do a survey of a lot of the new joiners that join us, two things that they keep telling us are one of the key reasons why they want a brand like Deloitte is because they are proud of joining an organization with a great legacy and a great history. Deloitte's been there for close to 180 years. And they're also, especially for the Gen Zs today, and probably the Gen Alphas today, what's most important is an organization that cares about the environment, that cares about sustainability, and all of those factors. So I would say it's two things. One, it's about our legacy and what it means to people, as well as our sustainability and how we look at it. Now, Deloitte's a great example of sustainability because we have sustained ourselves for so many years. We always talk about ourselves as saying, there are so many organizations that have been great, number one brands, but did not stand the test of time. We stood for 180 years and constantly reinvented ourselves. So we are like the Roger Federers or the Michael Jordans of the corporate world in terms of continuously being there. So I think that's one of the reasons why the brand is very important, and the brand is something we care deeply about.
So yeah, it's good that actually our participants can interact with us through the chat. So if you have any questions, by the way, so please write on the chat. So I'll make sure I ask those questions to our panelists today. And George, I think it's really important to, especially when you are like a big company, like for long years, you're operating in multiple different continents. I think it's important to keep the brand up to date, and that's also quite challenging because there's always risk to be outdated after some time. I think that piece is also quite critical for success, right?
Correct. And the fact that we have been in consulting helps because I don't know if our listeners have done this before, but if you Google Deloitte, a lot of what Deloitte does in the consulting space, we do through something called Deloitte Insights. And what we do is whenever there is a new scenario, for example, if there is when COVID happened, or there's a new world order, or Bitcoin, or today in artificial intelligence, any of the themes that come in new, Deloitte always shares a point of view or a perspective, which is quite important. And they can read about that to Deloitte Insights. When I was starting my career and when I was just finishing my MBA, I used to reference a lot of Deloitte papers from Deloitte Insights about Deloitte studies and researchers. So yeah, that's also important in terms of being current and sharing a perspective.
Yeah, great. Thanks, George. And Ebru, you are working with different companies in employer branding initiatives. So can you also tell us, like, what are those key elements that you observe that companies should be adding in their employer branding initiatives?
Thanks, Sarah. Before I start with that, I also would like to just call out to my Deloitte years as George is here. I was part of the Deloitte Turkey practice, and I can remember those 7 years. 7 is a quite long time to be in a consulting company, but I think building a strong culture is very important, and building that culture is very important. And George also mentioned about sustainability. And one of the key things I remember well was also the Deloitte Impact Day, and creating that, sustainability and giving back to society is key element for companies to attract top talent. And doing it not for the sake of doing, but also making employees part of that impact day is really important. In that impact day, actually, Deloitte calls out to its employees, and you can work one day dedicated to whatever social cause you want to do, and making your employees part of that cause and giving back to society, feeling it together, bringing all those people together is crucial. And I think one of the other things is giving career growth opportunities, and also learning opportunities. One of the also good things I remember well is getting a Harvard Business School certificate through Deloitte, and management excellence and leadership excellence certificates I could achieve was through the Deloitte's opportunity. It's actually very difficult one to get, because you really work hard to get the certificate. It wasn't easy. You had to pass exams as well, but it was, I'm talking about maybe 15 years back, or maybe 17 years back. And this was a virtual certificate program. So it also shows how the company was, very much digital focused and encouraging employees to get that, learning opportunity. This is a free, Deloitte commercial for Georgia, but I mean, this is, it's really important as an alumni to reflect back on the good things and what actually, grew me in my whole career journey. It was a good school, good learning opportunities. And the other thing I think, what I also see in other companies across various industries is I can say that, giving the employees opportunity for work-life balance. And I know George doesn't like to call it like this, but he will, I'm sure, will touch base on this. But I mean, giving employees opportunities for their own, life space, whatever they want to do, giving that time, giving that opportunity to stay with their families or do their hobbies. It's crucial. The last point is the transparent communication. Whatever going on in the company, transparently communicating that is also, I think, very important. Whatever you think is going maybe good, as well as tough times, it is important that transparency to keep with the employees. Over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely important to empower the employees and create that memorable experiences. And as you mentioned, like that you had certification through the company, and you feel that company values your development and invest on you, and you don't forget that, after many years you still remember. I think that's the key for the employer branding, and that also creates a very positive experience, and then you recommend others to work in that company. I think that's also really key, right? So especially here, you mentioned about the culture, Ebru, and I want to ask George, like how you build the culture. I mean, what are the key elements that you and your team, especially George, paying attention to and focusing fully to improve the culture?
I think one of the most important aspects about culture is about listening. How good are you as a leadership group in listening to the people? So you can listen through engagement surveys. You can listen through being accessible to them. So, for example, when COVID hit, one of the first messages that came to us as a leadership group to the partners and directors was, please pick up your phones or please reach whatever channels, because you couldn't meet people in person, and engage with every single one of the people that you lead, and be close to your people. And that's very important, and that's something that defines culture. Culture is not just about working like a manager and sharing with people, asking people for updates and progress on the work, but the culture is knowing something beyond, whether it's who they are, not just as an employee, but as a person, who they are as a parent, who they are as a sports person. So, for example, in Deloitte, whether it is sports or social or activities or events, there's so much that happens. Family days happen, because Ebru talked about this a little bit. So We don't use work-life balance anymore. I think it's overused as a term. We use something called work-life integration because we believe that we are so evolved today as employees and organizations across the world that you can't put work in a box and you know and your personal life in a separate box or your family in a separate box. You have to if your boss knows that these are the things that are important to you. So I have two girls. My boss knows that what their happiness is important to me. He understands when I have to go to school, when I have to pick them up, right? In the same way, if my kids also know, my kids know the names of my bosses. I think that's a great reflection of culture. They say, okay, I know you're speaking to this boss now, or this manager now, or this leader now. Um, and that accessibility is great. And after COVID, um, people have come really closer with each other. So that's one big part of culture, being accessible and listening. Another part of culture, which I think Ebru also mentioned, this is learning. I would not have been in Deloitte for this long, and I know a lot of people like me that will spend some more years and we'll probably go into the balance sheet of the firm because we've never looked at other opportunities per se. Um, I wouldn't have been there unless I learned something every day. Every day is a challenge. There's something happening in the industry, there's something happening in technology, there's something happening in consulting, there's something happening with the dynamics of the marketplace. And I've been in HR for so many years because, like, all of our fingerprints are unique, every person is unique. And it's so much fun to engage. We're a people business. The only asset we have is people. All consulting and firms are people businesses. And that's the only asset we can take care of. We don't sell products or services. We invest in their competence and their learning and build a learning culture. And I know, and we've always talked about this as an organization. If you don't continuously help people learn and get new experiences, they will leave. People in the past, you would think, there is a limit to what compensation and benefits and a lot of those things can do. They can attract you, but if you want to retain you, you need to have a culture of learning, a culture of positive experiences.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a really important point. You can attract people with the compensation benefit, but to retain them, keep them in the organization, engaged, motivated, you definitely need to work on culture, leadership as well. I guess that's also very, very important to build the right culture. And as Uplift, we also work with candidates and, of course, companies all around the world. And especially in today's world, we see more and more the candidates are asking more questions about the culture of the companies. What is the employee value proposition? Like, what is the mission of this company? Like, do I really believe myself working aligned with this mission or not? I think the people have that mentality right now. And of course, they ask the questions about the job and the other details, but that piece is becoming more and more important in today's world, which is really nice to see as well. And I think that helps to create mission-driven organization, purpose-driven organizations globally, because we are now in candidate-driven markets. We are trying to attract people the right way. And Ebru, maybe you can also tell us a little bit about what are those best practices to keep employer morale or motivation high in the organization, and of course that also align with the culture too, as we mentioned, because it's supporting culture too. But what do you think about that?
Sure. I think creating that shared goal, shared vision by the leadership is very important, because sometimes employees can get distracted by, why am I doing this? Why are we working on this? So sharing that big picture and bringing everyone on the same umbrella, under the same umbrella, and keep reminding them why we are doing things, and sharing that goal is, I think, crucial. The other thing is and motivating people during that mission, like trying to achieve whatever that goal is. We shouldn't forget our human side. So creating those human points, human gatherings, it's so important. Yes, during Corona time, we actually observed how virtually we can create amazing stuff. Like, for example, I remember we created so many virtual workshops, and I was also awarded by globally with these initiatives. It was like a global virtual cooking workshop, for example, or virtual painting workshops. Like the creativity boomed during those times. But we
I
also
remember yoga class, the meditation classes.
exactly. So the creativity at that time booked. We also, I remember during those times, iftar is very important for this part of the world, and because we couldn't physically come together, we actually had worked with a charity. We couldn't, organize our iftar, but for 5 minutes we connected right before iftar and created,
Nice.
a connection point, and then we also did our iftar virtually together. I mean, those are things I think, enough, and people missed each other physically. So what we are right now seeing as a trend is many organizations are reaching us to organize their team workshops and team gatherings. And this is not only one way sharing, just learnings or, the company information. What we do differently is to create games, interactive workshops to make people part of the journey and create a place so that they actually learn their teammates better in a creative way, and they see different sides of people and they see different skills come out in those creative games. And when you make people laugh, smile, I think that's how you make people learn more about the topic, and they will remember those times when you make people smile. I remember in my Stanford course, Stanford Leadership Executive session for a high performer women leaders program, we had a special session on humor. Humor, seriously, book author Jennifer had come to our session and told about the science behind humor and making people smile and laugh. So it's actually a strategical tool to navigate hard topics, especially in the boardrooms. This is also a very good strategy. So what we see as a growing trend in the Middle East, we are receiving offers, proposal requests for taking their global leadership to Turkey, in the south part of Turkey, to Bodrum, Antalya, and it's great to hear these these requests coming from global organizations, because I'm really happy to see that companies more and more giving focus attention on bringing people together, seeing that value again, creating human times, face times. I think it's really crucial. Yes, during Corona times, we have seen the cost factor, how it dropped, but I think people also witnessed the difficult times of not coming together physically. It also creates challenges, difficulties in the teams. So I remember when I was leading my previous company's Expo partnership, and I had built a team, but they in order to bring them together and towards a shared goal, coming back to my first comment on the shared goal, I had actually improved myself, learned some trainings about creative, coherent teams, and also applied these learnings in my team with various creative games, like even like chocolate workshops, like all those things, making people smile and appreciate the time together. It really paid back, and our Expo project also won global awards, both in the Middle East and also in my internal organization.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, yeah, definitely after pandemic, I think the people miss that human touch. And we see also in the conferences, like expos, there are people actually coming together and networking each other and meeting each other, which is really nice, I think, to be back on the stage. And George, maybe you can also tell us at Deloitte, like how was the shift after pandemic? Did you have also big shift in terms of human touch, creating those type of events?
Yeah, and it's very interesting what happened before the pandemic. Usually people come together, they service the entire region. So even if they work out of a particular city or a country, they service the entire Middle East. And before the pandemic, most of the time when people come together are get-togethers or learning programs when they come. And before the pandemic, a lot of the learning was technical learning, certifications, courses, etc.
On site, right?
on-site learning. What's really changed after it is they've said we can do all of the technical learning, the core subject-based learning, digitally, self-learning, instructor-led on Teams or Zoom or even Riverside. But um, we need to make sure that there are a lot of programs, like Ebru mentioned, which are professional learning, leadership learning, team building, experience learning. We call them excellence series learnings, where people come together. And it's not just saying, let's bring them into a room for a training program. It's about a celebration. It's about spending time in the evening. It's networking. I remember last year, we did learning programs where in the morning we'll have some a session on coaching or performance excellence or something like that, and business awareness in the afternoon. But then towards the evening we'd have some time on the beach, and there would be tug of wars. In the evening we'd go to a nice restaurant and have a comedy club. So there's it's I think people have really embraced their humanity after COVID. It's really made people understand that you need to have personal equations and touch.
Mhm.
Deloitte's brand, for example, we talk about our brand as three words: clear, confident, and human. And if our brand is not human, if it seems too mechanical, artificial, then it doesn't have value.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. As a firm, what we've also tried to do is we've tried to do as much mobility and cross-border connections and get people from different places to have different experiences, travel, virtual, however it is. We're cognizant of, you know, carbon footprint and all of those factors, but we also are, it's important that people are seen live, people are felt next to each other, and that it creates a big vibe. So my leaders, I report to the CEO. One of the key things that he mentions, in my business is that if they are interviewing somebody important or if they are having an important meeting, at best they try to have it in person,
Yeah.
because the dynamics is completely different, and you build a relationship by that conversation. It's not just a selection process or a decision making process, it's also a relation building process. So that's something that has really changed. We've got closer together. We stay closer to our teams. WhatsApp, groups come in, and
Yes.
we use WhatsApp groups, not to talk about work and updates and projects, to celebrate, whether you have pets at home or whether you have family or something good is happening, or you're having a great time somewhere, or we're coming together. So I think celebration, community, learning, all of that in person is coming.
I
Mm-hmm.
totally
Yeah.
That's
agree
what's
with that. And I would like to add one point. I remember I built all my good bonds with my colleagues. I remember when I first joined my previous company, there was a big global meeting at Miami. And I was like, wow, look at that company. They are taking us to Miami. And when I met people there, I continued those conversations and connections over there. And there was another meeting in Singapore, I remember, and I met my colleagues. Right now, they became my friends. Some of them close friends. Like one of them is Tombi in Africa. How on the earth I can meet a person from Africa? What are the chances? So those global meetings bring people together and allow people to build connections, which actually last if you allow so.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And building connection is definitely key to enhance the culture too, because you, especially in the same company, when you meet different colleagues and you see their behaviors, you see different leaders' behaviors, and you see them as role models. And I think that type of behaviors and approaches are just, moving to the other people as well with this examples. So I think that's really, really critical. And also, by the way, I'm looking at the chat box. If you have any questions, by the way, our participants, please write on the chat. And as we are approaching to the almost the end of the webinar, and I would like to maybe ask. I mean, I know George. We had one session together before. I know you really like people analytics and talent analytics. So maybe you can also tell us a little bit about the like how we measure these efforts. You mentioned about the surveys. Are there any other ways that you track the employer branding efforts?
Yeah, so I think LinkedIn is a fantastic tool for it,
Yeah.
because LinkedIn talks extensively about what is the people engagement with your brand. Okay, so the social media profile analytics is a big space to know. So, for example, today LinkedIn has a lot of advanced AI features. So does Avature, and so does a lot of other recruiting systems. Just taking one of them as an example. And if you post a job on this platform, and let's say you get 3,000 applicants for that job, usually that's the range you get. The system AI is also tell you how many people are actively engaged with your brand, how many people have connections with Deloitte, how many people have first level connections, how many people have use Deloitte leadership as influencers. So you kind of really know what's the level of engagement you have with people have with you as a brand, and you kind of see what people care about to engage. I'll give you an example. So Deloitte has a lot of diversity in the Middle East, and of all of the places Deloitte exists, Middle East has the most number of diversity. Dubai as an office is close to 100 nationalities working in the same office. So
Oh,
sometimes I walk around the office, I think it's 105 now, and you meet somebody and you say, "Hello, I'm George," and "Hello, where are you from?" And they say, "I'm from this country," and you are really embarrassed because you have no idea where that country is in the world. First, even before you smile and shake hands, the first thought in your mind is, you're not very smart in your geography. Run to an atlas or a map, because you're like, okay, is that in Europe? Is that in Asia? Is that somewhere else? Which is the capital? How far is it from here? And it's so fantastic that you have so much diversity, because when you have just a few people from a few countries, um, then you have group think and you have people coming together and you have office politics, etc. But when you are working in an organization that is as diverse as Deloitte, with 100 nationalities, there is no one culture. The culture is the firm's culture. Then there is no individual nationality, ethnicity, none of that matters. What matters is, what does the firm stand for? What are we in it to achieve? So that's what I would believe is unity in diversity. The more, and that's why I'm a huge proponent for diversity. The more the diversity, the more people come together, the lesser the complexities and the politics, which is, in my experience, it's there. It exists a lot. I think that's what we've experienced a lot in terms of living in this kind of an environment,
mhm.
and it's entertaining. Connecting to the employer brand, I always put stuff on LinkedIn. When something happens in my team or something,
That's
and of all of the LinkedIn posts that I made, one day I was doing a training program and I realized that I was doing a session for 15 people, and in those 15 people there were 13 nationalities. It just happened as a surprise. Okay, it was not planned or something. And so we all stood together and we all took a photo. We all came in our ethnic wear or whatever clothes that
oh,
define who we
nice.
are from our
Yeah.
countries. We took a look at the photo, and usually you get about 5,000, 10,000 views on a post. I got about 100, 200,000 views on a single post,
Oh,
because love the people love human stories.
yeah.
People love, so when I sit with my team, sometimes I take lunch. I don't know if you stalk me on LinkedIn, you will see some of my posts.
Yes,
uh,
yes, I saw.
so there's a nice post where I realized that in my team, so my team is about 80-85% women. Okay, because I was telling Sarah and Abru the other day,
You're a great
they're simply
example,
better than
George.
the men.
Yes,
Yeah, no offense to the men, but as men we can only do one thing at one time, and we are in a box mentality. We can focus, okay, we can deep dive, but we have tunnel vision. Women can do so many things in the world of HR. You have so many different priorities, because you're working with different types of people and different concerns for people, and there's like 100, 200 different areas. So women are far more exceptional. So I have team members. I don't know if they'll ever listen to this podcast, but there are some people, when they come into your office, an employee comes into your office and they say hello and they're so welcoming and they're so kind and all that. And as soon as they leave, my colleague's going to come and tell me, I think that person is leaving. I think that person's exiting the. I'm like, no way. They were so friendly and they shake your hand. But I think women have this extra sensory perception
mm,
to read body language and
yeah.
things that men cannot. Men can only understand words. They can understand emotions. So it's interesting. So I think experience is connected to diversity, and we try to do that. We try to say, whichever teams have lesser diversity, can we increase that as much as possible?
Mhm.
There's so much learning from each other,
Yeah.
understanding our culture, celebrating it. So we celebrate cultures. and nationality. So whenever you have an important day or a festival that is very local um, to a particular country, we get those countrymen to come and talk about why it's special to them.
Yeah.
So we
That's
do a
really
lot of
nice
those things.
example. Yeah, and actually in our team as well, we have I think 9 or 10 different nationalities. So we also had a session to share the traditions from each culture, like what are the different like weddings or public holidays, some special holidays. So what do we do? So that's quite nice to learn different cultures. And Despo actually wrote something on the chat. Let me read it. Having a clearly articulated EVP helps employer branding, both in terms of attracting new candidates, retaining existing candidates, and alumni even returning. A culture aligned to your
Alumni.
diversity, yes, exactly, prior practices, and the way people are treated is the best way to attract people to your brand. People are your best asset. They speak about how they are treated and what stands out. Talent brand focuses on the company's commitment to employee development, career growth, how it can help the employees advance their careers, and also advances the brand. This way, you are definitely on spot, and it's a nice
Thanks for
summary of our
sharing this.
conversation. Exactly. But I would like to also, and thanks for your participation, Despo. And if you have any questions, yeah, please write. Thank you. And Ebru, maybe I let me give the word to you as well. So, do you want to add anything else?
Sure, I would like to add the point on talent brand. Given my 20 years of experience is more on the brand side. What I'm seeing lately also is companies encouraging their employees to become brand ambassadors and make them more visible on, like how George shared, for example, sharing a picture on LinkedIn. So we are also organizing personal brand workshops where we also organize this gathering together for people to think about their key skill set, their key strengths, and how they want to be known for. Because I truly believe that when people actually share their stories, their personal touch, there are also studies also encourage this. Nielsen, there is a study says that when company page shares one post versus an employee shares one post, employees post gets more attraction and engagement.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
companies started to realize this fact. So that's why they are giving trainings to their employees to be more visible, to be more vocal about this. So as GVGL right now, we are working with Bayer on this, and we are working with their Egypt workforce and making their women employees actually to be more visible on their space. So there's this personal brand workshop I highly recommend to those companies who would like to make their employees brand ambassadors. It is so crucial, like how George posted one post. And imagine if this was a virtual call versus people coming together physically, wearing those clothes and sharing that on social media, how it differs. So it is that actually makes people become brand ambassadors. So companies need to more think about wisely about how to position their talent brand, not just putting logos everywhere. This is more strategical way of approaching talent brand.
Definitely. Thanks, Ebru. And Despo also mentioned it helps a company to become an employer of choice, which is, I think, very, very important. And also ROI as well, of course. I mean, as George mentioned, like if we look at the analytics, we see the big impact. But George, do you want to add anything else?
I think one other key metric about whether your employee values you as an organization is how many people do they refer to the firm.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we have taken a lot of effort this year is to promote as many referrals to the firm. And right now, of all of the people we hire, the most significant amount of hires come through referrals.
Referral.
It's important
Yeah.
because when somebody refers a friend, a colleague, a neighbor, they tell them about everything about the pros and the cons and the experience and everything. And it is very, very likely that the individual is going to come. There will be a limited learning curve for a new hire coming in.
Yeah.
They will know. and they will always have a support system existing in the firm to go back
Mhm.
to. So I think having great referral processes. So traditionally, organizations looked at referrals saying, okay, you refer somebody, I will give you some money. But we've changed that to saying people don't always refer candidates for the money. We need to recognize the people that refer because they are involved in the organizational building process,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
More, if an organization has to grow, it needs more people. We are a people organization, we need to grow with people. So we try our best to say, how can we recognize people who refer? Because whether, so somebody goes into an important promotion or an important milestone, one of the key questions that needs to be asked to them is, what have you done in building this organization? How many
Exactly.
people have you introduced and excited and attracted to the firm because of you? Because we love the fact you are staying in the organization and you're successful because you are doing very well, and we want more people like you. So can you celebrate? So the most um, active referrals we get in the region are our friends that we get from campuses in Saudi, for example,
Mm.
fin and because otherwise it's sometimes challenging to get expat referrals because you have to move with families, etc. But we get a lot of them, and there are a lot of perceptions that if you read the news, you live in a world of alternate reality. But when you talk to an employee of a company, you know what happens in the region, in the company. We we sometimes say when we hire people, it's like a marriage. So when I hire leadership, so whether I hire partners or directors, I don't just talk to them. I want to understand about their spouses, their kids,
Yeah.
their education, what is important to them. Because it's not just saying, okay, I found somebody with the right skill set. He meets all of the, or she meets all of the qualifications. It's about, does the family also want to come and stay here? Do the kids boy, like schools here? So there's so many things. So I think referral also is a great way to connect.
Great,
I think in
great
order
channel.
to
I'm glad that you mentioned. Yeah.
I think
Yes,
in
Weber.
order to have strong referral, that's one key element is the alumni pool, because how you
Yeah.
separate
Yeah.
with an employee is also crucial. I remember when I was living Deloitte, it was as if I was living a family, or I was like having a divorce, like, and I was so sad. And I remember we had gathered for a dinner, and I was really encouraged by my leadership. I remember our CEO kept seeing me and asking, Ebru, are you happy? Our doors are always open to you. You can always come back. And
Mm.
knowing that there is a door open behind, and you are always welcomed, so that you always remember those years very well, and then you become the brand ambassador of the company you left. You spent 7 years, but you always talk very well about it. Even today, when we met in George in an event, in a panel, when I heard he's from Deloitte, I said I'm a Deloitte alumni, and then it immediately connected us. And see,
Yeah,
today we are here together.
exactly. No,
So
it's very good.
when alumni come back, we call them boomerangs internally. That's our technical term.
Yeah,
We have a lot of boomerangs. I have a lot of boomerangs in my team too. I hate people leaving me because it's my own family, and I spend more time with them than at home.
indeed. Yeah,
So I love when they come back. It's a huge achievement.
yeah.
So yeah,
And
that's
also
great. It's great.
referrals, by the way, I was sharing a kind of best practice in one of my people analytics webinars. So the one company in the US is a software company. They hired a lot of people. They were in a growth stage, and they look at each recruitment channel that they hire people. They analyze which one is more effective to retain people for longer term. So actually, they
Yeah,
found employee referral is the second biggest channel, that when they hire people through employee referral, those people tend to stay longer in the company. And the first one was they were changing the contract of interns to permanent, so they
correct,
tend to stay
correct.
longer. But the
I think
second employee
it's
referral,
even today. So campuses, hiring people from campuses is a great way,
exactly.
not just to retain, uh, whether you hire them as interns, etc., but for them to grow, because the harder thing to do in modern organizations today when you hire people is for them to unlearn and relearn.
Yeah,
Whereas when you get young students just out of university trying to apply all their knowledge, um, they are so open to learning new things, and they're so excited. Um, we hire a lot of people from campuses, and the energy they bring,
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, these two, I agree, Sarah. These two are not just in terms of retention and ability to stay with the firm, etc., but also in performance.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
Sometimes you do look at saying, can we hire people from, similar companies? Can we do a lot of lateral hiring? But there's too much to unlearn. There's too much complications, contradictions. But when you hire people who are referrals, who have a family member in the family, in the Deloitte family, then it's
Yeah.
easier
Yeah, exactly.
whenever they have to.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, George. Ebru, we are at the end of our webinar. Thanks to our participants as well. And we will be actually publishing this video on YouTube channel. We will be sharing the links on LinkedIn because a few team members couldn't hear us well, I think. So they will be able to see the full picture. Thanks a lot, Ebru, again, George. It was a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.